Yes, yes. Coffee Conversations with Greg J is on. What's going on, everybody? What is going on? I hope you're doing well. Mindfulness is the word that comes to mind as we talk to the people today. Culturally relevant conversations on a variety of topics. And we always come from a global perspective. It's all about the culture all over the world. You can get Coffee Conversations, it on Facebook Live, and our website, Beach City Radio, beachcityradio.com. We repurpose the audio for podcast purposes, and you can get that wherever you get your favorite podcast. That's Spreaker, iHeart, Apple, Google. Just type in Coffee Conversations with Greg J. Today, we turn our lens to gospel music. I don't know if you notice, when you go to church now, right? And I'm noticing the diminishment of choirs. I'm noticing the music sounding more a little like CCM. And, this is just an evolution, I suppose, of culture. And so today we want to just have that conversation about the evolution of gospel music. And yeah, that's where we're at. We also will talk about, gospel music and music as an art form, as healers, especially in the areas of mental health. To help me with all of this conversation, I got a new friend here, Brother Elijah Rock is with us. Good morning, brother.
Morning, brother. How you doing, Brother Greg?
Yes, I'm doing all right. We out here trying to make it all happen, making a difference, informing and inspiring the people.
Amen.
Well, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Man, thank you so much for taking the time to, sip some coffee with me and just talk about all things culture, especially from a gospel music perspective. I'd like to just, first of all, tell us a little bit about Elijah Rock. Who are you, my brother?
Well, Elijah Rock's my stage name. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. And, Eric Myricks is my government name. And, it was around somewhere in my, I don't know, 2000, early 2000s when I took on the name Elijah Rock. And Elijah Rock, as you may know, is a spiritual. Moses Hogan wrote a spiritual song called Elijah Rock. Elijah Rock, shout, shout. Right? A lot of people don't know that. And, this is, when Facebook, when it was cool to get a Facebook handle, a Twitter handle, all these things were new. I was thinking about outside of that, I was just thinking would I want to take on a stage name and what would that look like? And when I was contemplating this, I had a dream, and in my dream, I was on I would say a sojourn, and in this dream, my ancestors were on the right and the left side of me, and they were bestowing frankincense upon me, and they basically said, "We offer this name Elijah Rock to you." And because it's a spiritual, and what this song means because you've sung this song as a Jubilee singer, singing this song in concert halls all around the world, you understand the depth of culture that's embedded in this song. And you're a person with spiritual values, so you understand how this pertains to the story of Elijah in the Bible, and Elijah being a unifying prophet. And so I woke up and I told my wife at the time, I said, "How about Elijah Rock?" And I tell you a quick little story of how it stuck. Denzel Washington walked into an art gallery where she was working at the time, and she was telling him what I do as an entertainer, and he said, "What's the stage name?" And she said, "Elijah Rock." He said, "I don't know if that's his real name, but he should keep it." and
Oh man.
that's how it stuck. So Elijah Rock has informed the decisions I've made as an artist. It's informed, as I took on a name and was able to get ElijahRock.net and the .com and all the Twitter handles and blah 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 and Facebook and Instagram. It's just guided my career in terms of what I say yes to and what I don't say yes to. Because at the cornerstone of my career, I want to make sure that I continue the legacy of our people and do things that make our culture proud.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. That's fascinating stuff there, and great. You're absolutely right. We have to tell our own stories, and speak truth to power. And I'm so glad to hear your perspective of how you're approaching your art. Let me ask you a question. Listen, what? All right. So your music is gospel, right?
No,
Would you
my
consider
music.
yourself a gospel artist?
No, I'm actually. I started out singing spiritual music, and I'm trained in bel canto. Of course, when you start out as a classical singer, you sing the spirituals. So I'm definitely very much at the foundation of my career, inspired by the likes of Paul Robeson and Roland Hayes and William Warfield and so forth. But I'm
Mhm.
a recording artist of the Great American Songbook as since 2006 with my new record, Memories Unleashed, Impulse One, and it is an homage to my father who has Alzheimer's disease. But I've had 4 American Songbook albums out. First was Gershwin for My Soul. The second was Memories, Matters of the Heart. Then I did an EP called Swoon, and now Memories Unleashed, all funded and distributed independently. And Memories Unleashed is on the national radio. We just started the campaign last week, so you literally can be hearing that music on jazz radio across the country.
Nice, nice. Okay, all right. Well, that's what's up then. Okay, so I'm gonna stick with my line of questioning though, because I didn't. I'm so glad to learn all of this about you. We just met, and everything, and I really love, the space of your art where you're working in, and we can. That's actually going to grow into some really good questions that I have for you about your journey as an independent artist. But as we were talking, in the green room, I do want to ask about because I thought we were going to come, I guess because I was hypnotized by Elijah Rock. I thought we were going to have a conversation about gospel music, but I'm
Yeah.
asking to you anyway. So when I go to church now, you know what I'm saying? I don't see the choir,
Mm,
and I see this across the board.
mm,
And our history, our culture
mm,
is it's the big choirs, right? I don't see. I hear the music sounding more like CCM, which is for folks that don't know. Okay, you have our gospel music, down here on the south side, and then and then you go across the way. Their music is more CCM, general market, contemporary Christian music is what CCM stands for. And so I do hear our music now, sounding more and more like CCM. Do you notice the same? And if so, what do you see as the cause or the ignition point for that evolution?
yeah. Well, I think the ecosystem of the church has completely changed, and I think that it comes down to marketing. What's going to get people excited to come to church, and
Mm,
what is the entertainment factor that does that. Unfortunately, church has become, with the birth of teleministries and so forth like that. Church has there's an aspect of the church that's become a spectacle. And so how do you as a church, as a new church, compete with that? Very difficult, right? So I could see this being not only a trend in that particular regard, but also just in music general, where pop music and the influence of hip hop culture and so forth. So to intertwine current pop music with gospel messaging is a is a great idea. Actually, it's an interesting idea, and it's a relevant idea. So I can understand how the younger generation would want to just naturally tie that together. You know, it's probably an
Mm.
organic evolution. Probably not a lot of thought went into it. It's just I grew up on pop, hip hop, you know, rap music, and I love the Lord. So it's just going to, and that's where innovation comes from, right? And so I think there's an aspect of that that's really brilliant. And I think the thing is that, you know, there is a foundational aspect that sometimes in these situations, many times get lost, and that's unfortunate because there is something pure about a simple hymn. And
Mm.
then you have those who have abandoned the Negro spiritual because they feel like the Negro spiritual is downtrodden music. And I actually don't believe.
Nobody knows the trouble I
Yeah,
see.
yeah, and I get that, but there's a whole other. You know, if you sing "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot," very different, right? There's a whole canon of spiritual songs that also have uh, meaning, and they have spirited meaning. You know, so you know, my whole thing is, eh, even if you sang one of the songs that could be a message song, could be a song of pain and belaboring. It's a part of our history. So how do you transmute that into a positive
Yeah.
message and a historical message? I think there's value there too. So and there's an art within that. And there's a whole, you know, our every music that you see us proliferate now has come from that. So there's something very ancient about that music, and something very healing in the melody, in the tonalities of that music, of that African and American music. So that it's a challenge, and unfortunately, a lot of people in the church have not embraced it.
Mm.
You know, when I was in my 20s, I was touring with the Los Angeles Jubilee Singers, singing Negro spiritual music in concert halls around the world. And guess what? You know, people in European nations and other nations around the world, they knew these songs. They know our story, and they were just enamored by you know, our performance of these songs. No real market here for that. They don't even. I don't even think that the Albert McNeil Jubilee Singers even exists anymore, right? The
Wow.
Fisk Jubilee Singers, you know, you don't hear about them, right? So it's it's tough, but I always appreciate when someone comes out with a spiritual album, because these songs are America's classical music in a sense that it is what makes us distinctly Africans in America.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure Fisk is still around. Fisk Jubilee Singers. I feel like I saw them on one of those iterations of during the one of the big sports, and I can't remember when it was. I want to say NFL, but maybe that's not right. But anyway, Fisk Jubilee, you still see remnants of them. But I see what you mean, that genre is, yes, absolutely, loved and supported by the general market, that's for sure. And it's almost like the homegrown aspect of it has gotten lost, that part of our history has gotten lost, or not. It's interesting, that you so now when you sing the jubilees and the spirituals, what is what do you think is the fascination of the general market or of white folks, to the Jubilee? Is it because they like to watch our black pain? I have a friend of mine who is an activist, and
Mm.
she's also a professor at one of the local universities, and she always speaks about folks being fascinated with the pornography of Black pain. And I always, when she said that, I'm like, wow, that's really deep. Do you see that, Mike? Was that an apropos term to apply to what we're talking about?
I think that's a through line when it comes to Black music, because all Black music is rooted in Black pain, pretty much. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
so to that degree, I totally see where she's coming from and agree with that.
Okay.
However, I think this music, it's a high art. So because it's a high art, I would like to believe that there's something more ethereal that's attached to an appreciation of something that is transcendent in that way.
Yeah.
So to sort of, see it as a to make that the baseline of what, of the intent of one's intent is maybe on a subconscious level, maybe on a super subconscious level.
Sure.
But
Sure.
but it's like, if I see Leontine Price singing a spiritual, I'm also seeing great, majestic art.
Yes.
Right? If I see Jesse Norman singing a spiritual, yes, there could be that component, but I'm also seeing an art elevated to the highest level of performance and art. So there's something that's just majestic about that, and I can just appreciate that in the feeling that goes with that. So, but I wouldn't,
because it originates, that person has a relative experience with what the essence of the spiritual is, right? They have a relative experience that's been passed down from the ancestors directly. That's the pure DNA of it. Now, but when I hear, okay, like in Long Beach, California, where we originate here, they have the Camerata Singers. And when I hear them, especially since George Floyd, and people want to be inclusive and show that they, love us too. But when I hear them singing the spiritual, I appreciate the effort, is what I'm really saying.
Yes.
But I also, in my heart of hearts, know that there's a piece of seasoning missing out of your presentation of that song, because you don't know the story.
Some gumbo,
Right?
that it ain't the type of gumbo we used to eat. And no, you're right, and that goes kind of to her point as well, is that aspect of our pain that we bring to it is something that maybe makes them, maybe it's just not a pornography perspective, but in some ways you would hope that it helps them to reckon with some of their own dealings of the Black experience, and how that and how that affects them. And so I would hope it would be deeper than this surface level, where they would go deeper to understand where they sit in this experience, and how they can reckon with some real deep seated issues that are real. But in their own consciousness, their own experience, their own bias, their own racism that may be, lying dormant or being suppressed or not being dealt with. So that's the purpose of the art. I mean, in terms of, how we help others reckon with our pain, is for hopefully they can see us, or see our pain in themselves, and realize that, hey, we we're not asking for a handout, but we're asking you to understand this experience, and do the right thing. Like, you do the right thing, and try to eradicate any type of racist sentiment that you might, be harboring consciously or unconsciously.
Sure, sure, sure. All right, you mentioned the Great American Songbook. For those folks that may not know, what is that? What does
It's
that mean when you say you got, what'd you say, 4 or 5 of them?
I know. I'm glad you mentioned. I'm glad you mentioned that because, the Great American Songbook is a slogan that's been pretty much hijacked by white folk. You know what I'm saying? But the Great American Songbook was popularized by the likes of Ella Fitzgerald. And so the Great American Songbook is people also refer to the the standards, the American songs written from the 20s through the 50s that were, the huge part of that body of work was written by Jewish songwriters, Gershwin, Cole Porter, Rodgers and Hart, Kurt Weill, and so forth. But, Ellington was in the mix too, right?
Sure.
Caledonia, right, was in the mix too, right? And that's Louis Jordan.
Yeah.
And so there is, we are we are interweaved into the Great American Songbook. Ella Fitzgerald popularized the songbook at Verve. She did like 3 or 4, songbook records, paying homage to Gershwin, a whole album of Gershwin song, Cole Porter. I mean, she helped to really market these songs in a huge way. Billy Eckstine. I'm talking about some of the Black singers who, of course, we know about Sammy, and we know that Capitol was the house that Nat built, but there's a whole Fats Waller, there's a whole legion of songwriters and Black entertainers who are part of the Great American Songbook. But when you look at the predominantly Jewish culture that were the foundation of ASCAP, there's ASCAP and BMI, so right, so the foundation of the publishing, body, ASCAP, predominantly Jewish songwriters. When you look at publishing as a business, predominantly Jewish, folk, right? So it's not. I'm not surprised, as with American culture, that the Great American Songbook would be kind of canonized as a slogan, because we know when you say Great American anything, there's an inherent exclusion of Black contribution.
Yeah.
And so I use that word because it's rightfully putting us at the table of the Great American Songbook. Sure. And helping Black folk to understand that the Great American, that we are the essence of what has made America great. Yeah. In terms of we built this country, and so we are the fabric of the Great American Songbook. And to have a Black person say that and try to bring some awareness around the word in association with who I am or what I look like is why I say it, because not only am I singing that song, that canon of work, I'm Black, and I stand on the shoulders of all these Black entertainers I just mentioned.
Yeah. I love that era that you just named, by the way. We've done a few things in our art gallery showings, saluting, music of the Harlem Renaissance and all of that. And I was well studied in it too. My first college radio program was Black music from the 20s, 30s, and 40s. And, I love it. Louis Jordan and his Timpani 5.
Timpani 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I sing Is You Ain't My Baby on the record.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, see, we're curating an immersive music experience here in Long Beach at the Billie Jean King Main Library, and we're doing this in honor of African American Music Appreciation Month, also known as Black Music Month.
Yeah.
And we're centered on women in jazz. So in this space, as you think about the Great American Songbook, just call out about 4 or 5 women that you could think of that contribute to the history, the legacy of the Great American Songbook through jazz.
Of course, Ella Fitzgerald, Sarah Vaughan, Nancy Wilson, Carmen McRae, and I mean, even my sister who was in Touched by an Angel. You know,
Oh, Delarice.
Delarice sang jazz. Delarice, and so
Yes.
many others. Um, Nina Simone and so forth. You know, but I would also, challenge you as well, and those, because you see a lot of women in jazz type series, and I appreciate that. And I think, women in jazz series should continue to be celebrated. What you don't see a lot of is men in jazz, particularly Black men in jazz, particularly Black male vocalists in jazz. You don't hear much about Arthur Prysock. You don't hear much about, Billy Eckstine and Johnny Hartman, and Ernie Andrews, who's, right there. And it was in California. I got to give it to my mentor in the songstress, also Barbara Morrison. Got to mention her. She was the first lady of jazz in California and a mentor of mine.
Our friend, yes.
Oh, Barbara, sweetheart, man. She was amazing. But there's a lot of men. And I think there's been this, it's another conversation we can have, but I think has definitely been an intentional emasculation of the Black male voice in music, particularly the Black male baritone in music. Because if you have a crossover audience of white women who fall in love with the Black male voice and the Black male figure who sings in a baritone tone that's more father-like than a tenor voice, then the Black man being so feared can cause some problems. And it's an elephant in the room that nobody really wants to deal with and talk about. But I can tell you that it has been a huge factor in the likes of people like Billy Eckstine when he was coming up as a teen idol, in comparison to Sinatra and some of the issues that he faced as being a Black baritone.
Prysock too. Yes, I'm trying to remember the song of a song. I'm trying to remember. I sing it all the time, but now I got y'all the line here. I can't remember the title.
Yeah,
but
Prysock,
Prysock.
He was great. He was great.
Man.
Joe Williams was great.
I
got Herb Jeffries, Flamingo.
Yeah.
Right here, I got Herb Jeffries right here on my wall. I want to do a version of Flamingo. See, I mean, no, you don't. I'm probably one of the only Black singers that even can talk about these guys, like with you as a contemporary artist performing these songs and standing on their shoulders. So yeah, man, we are, you talk about a lost art. I mean, crooning these songs with real technique and artistic, nuance is and some people say, well, it's not the popular music of the day. My sound is not the popular. I mean, my sound sounds more like those guys, right? Yeah, but I'm not. But I'm cut out of that cloth,
right?
So I'm not going to change my sound to chase a trend.
Yeah,
and I don't know when my sound might become the coolest thing. I don't know. It might not even happen in my lifetime. But I know that the music that I sing in this genre is good. And I know that I'm good at what I do, or I wouldn't have songs, I wouldn't be on radio. And I know that the quality of the musicians, I work with the best musicians in the business. So that's the one thing that I had to stop doing, is I had to stop comparing myself against what people deem as the hot thing now. And now could be a 10-year span. Who knows what that time period of a particular sound will be, like post Michael, post Stevie, like, the influences of that, who knows? But as you know, everything comes back around, happens in fashion, happens in music. So at some point, it's like when Johnny Hartman was discovered, right? Johnny Hartman was dead when Clint Eastwood put him in that film. And all of a sudden, we had this rediscovery of Johnny Hartman, and he was the coolest thing ever So I hope in my lifetime people discover me and really give me, the propers that I'm due. But I'm okay if I'm not, because the vision is to perform and to put out timeless music. And I had to be okay with the time in which I would be recognized for the quality and for what my sound is.
Right. Well, you know what you said earlier, you were talking about this is high art. And I really think that as we as a people, literally, we are in a cultural inflection point. And so, what does that mean? We're telling our own stories. We're having more art gallery experiences, high art experiences. And maybe that's not for everybody. It's got its own segment. And, let's just face it, I was talking to, we do pop-up art galleries and stuff. And as part of that, we do a lot of spoken word. So I was talking to one of the brothers that are coming, with the program of spoken word the other day, and we were talking about the customers that we wanted to come into the gallery space, what I'm saying, to enjoy what we were presenting, and we were framing the content that we have in the gallery, the beautiful art on the walls, the digital images, and then the spoken word, the magnificent prose that was coming from the microphone. And yes, there's a certain type of people we want up in here to see, to see this, and witness this. And I think that's what you're saying too. And I think people will discover you. The art is not lost. You've been given by the ancestors. You described it yourself, to preserve the art, to preserve this genre, this piece of our culture, this panel in the quilt of Blackness. You know what I'm saying? And I just really think that you're doing a great job in that. And as we have this cultural inflection, as we explore the different genres of music, arts expression, I know that you've also identified your music as a healer. And I do know for a fact, and as I go and I advocate across the state on behalf of the arts, I guess you could tell I'm an arts advocate. As I go to, legislators' offices and try to get more funding for artists and everything, and we can demonstrate and show data that shows that, hey, art is a healer. And we've actually even had mental health driven art expressions in our platform of activities that we do out here. I know that you're looking at music as a healer for dementia, or as a balm for dementia. Let me say it like that. Talk about that journey and talk about what's the messaging that you want the people to know of your music as it connects to dementia and other mental health diseases.
Yeah. Well, my dad is living with Alzheimer's disease. And so that sent me on a journey to become a Atlantic Fellow for Equity and Brain Health at the Global Brain Health Institute, which is housed at UCSF. And for a year, I spent, working, collaborating with neurologists, neuroscientists, and, people in the profession. And coming from an arts background, it just became, how can I use art and music to impact cultural awareness and awareness around Alzheimer's disease. Dementia is interesting. Black folk are twice as likely to get dementia and are participating in research at a level under 5%. So it's a major problem, and we're trying to figure out different recruitment pipelines. And as part of my project, I was fortunate to be funded through my foundation, the Elijah Rock Foundation, which is a nonprofit 501c3 research institution connected, using music as a pathway for discovery, music, interventions, and, using technology and science to support, innovative ways of not just bringing awareness, but understanding the sentiment behind our willingness to participate in clinical trials or not. So, I just did a couple concerts, one in San Francisco and one in Miami, and we conducted some research, IRB approved research, where we asked some interesting questions, about 10 questions total, pre and post show. And it was alarming to see how many people were motivated and interested more in research because they saw the show was entertaining, and of course they heard me sharing my story with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I'm looking to use my art right now, is to engage audiences, tell my story, use songs that my dad, grew up on, and people in this generation have heard Route 66. But they hear me sing it, but I'm telling it as part of a story. And the idea is that, the shows bring community together, but then, you're hearing jazz and blues and timeless songs with a story connected. So maybe you can have a transgenerational, conversation with your uncle, your aunt about these songs. They can share with you where they were when they heard these songs, and maybe the songs, as it connects to the story, now has new meaning. So there's a lot of ways that you can connect brain health and resilience. Just coming to the show and being a part of this experience is good for your brain, because socialization is good for your brain. And a lot of people just don't understand what they can do with healthy eating, lowering anxiety with good sleep habits, and not excessive alcohol, not excessive drinking. And when you say brain health and mental health, it's very interesting, because when you say mental health, I think sometimes it elicits kind of a negative connotation. But when you say brain health, somehow it has a positive connotation, because good brain health is actually going to be good mental health, right? And so I like to frame the conversation around, how do we think about our brains as these organisms that need healthy food, that need rest, that need to be nurtured, novelty, learning a new instrument. These are all things, singing, socialization. These are all things that are actually good for the brain, and actually can reduce dementia and Alzheimer's by up to 35%. Mm-hmm. So we don't know these. Also, we in our community, high levels of diabetes, high levels of hypertension, heart disease, and things like that, right? So that's why, even just taking a walk every day is good for your brain anatomy. And so that's the messaging. And just having this conversation with you right now and sharing these things, maybe things that, folks don't necessarily know. And guess what? I talk to scientists, even the Black scientists, who try to get in front of maybe 10 people to share this. They can't get in front of people. But an entertainer like me can get in front of you and all your viewers and do a show and have 400 people, 500 people show up. And now I've spread the word. So now, hopefully the scientific community is really starting to understand, look, we can't solve this problem unless we bring the arts into it.
Yes, 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 yes. I love it. I love it, love it, love it, love it. That's what's really up. All right. So look, let me ask you this question. So now just give us a laundry list of where folks can find your music. You mentioned a couple of radio stations. So you were saying NPR, right?
Yeah, well, ElishaRock.com.
Okay.
On iTunes, I'm on Spotify, all the digital streaming services. So I would say, hey, if you want a physical copy, you can order it through my website, and all proceeds go to the foundation to support our cause. So even if you stream, like, everything associated with this project is going to bring awareness to Alzheimer's. For Memories Unleashed, but my other catalog is available on these online services as well. And yeah, just go and listen to my body of work. Yeah, I got a lot of songs out there, and check me out. And you can see the evolution of my growth. My first record was produced by Kevin Toney from the Blackbirds.
Oh, Kevin! Oh, yeah.
Kevin Toney
produced. Rest in peace, sir.
Rest in peace, Kevin Tony.
Yes, yes.
And then fast forward to Memories Unleashed, that was produced by Rayford Griffin. So just so y'all know who in LA is on my record, Rayford Griffin on drums, Todd Hunter, and he produced it. Arrangements with him and Todd Hunter on keys. You got Ray Fuller, guitar. You know, Michael O'Neill, guitar. You got Reggie Hamilton, bass.
Wow.
You got Rastine Calhoun on horn. Michael Hunter, horn, right? So Dennis Moody in LA mixed, mastered, and everything at Dennis Moody Studios. So, you know, I have recorded 2 records in LA, you know, with the baddest cats. So I just want to shout out to those guys because they did a wonderful job on the record.
All right, come on, West Coast, come through. Yeah. So let me ask you this, okay? So I would love to talk to you about bringing a show, an expression down here to Long Beach. I think
Long
would
Beach,
do really, really well. That would be really good. I'm already coming up with a couple of ideas listening to you talk.
let's talk about it, man. Yeah, I mean, the band's right there in LA. They love to do something in Long Beach. It's right there for them. Yeah.
All right, that's what's up. All right, Elijah Rock, any parting shots to the folks?
Thank you. I appreciate everybody tuning in, you know, supporting Greg J, with this incredible format. Continue to support Coffee Conversations. I love coffee. We actually have a coffee called Good Brain Coffee, and you can go to the Elijah Rock Foundation.org to learn more about the foundation as well. Memoriesunleashed.org. Just you know, follow me on @ElijahRock on Instagram and get to know me. I want to get to know y'all folks, and I appreciate your support. It really means a lot.
We need to have an off-air conversation about the coffee too.
Yeah. It's
Nice.
good coffee. It's good coffee.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, brother. We're gonna keep on going and making sure that we stay connected. It was an honor to meet you and learn about your art on this morning, and you know, just keep on doing the good work.
Thank you, Greg J. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah. This is Coffee Conversations with Greg J. Thank you. Elijah Rock, y'all. You know, look him up. He's out there. We're gonna put a lot of connecting points on our website, Beat City Radio, beatcityradio.com. That's where you can listen to Coffee Conversations with Greg J. We're on YouTube also, Coffee Conversations with Greg J. Please like and subscribe there. Help our algorithms in that space right there. We're all over the internet, Facebook. Sometimes we do Instagram broadcast. We will repurpose the audio of this and place it wherever you get your favorite podcast, iHeart, Spreaker, Google, Spotify, just wherever, you know, just go on there. Coffee Conversations with Greg J. Of course, Beach City Radio, beachcityradio.com. Always remember, y'all, love one another. Love one another, y'all. Love one another. Love is in need of love today. I think you'll agree, eh? All right. Peace and blessings.